So if you're like me, you may think that the current console generation we find ourselves in with the Nintendo Switch might go down in history as one of Nintendo's best console generations of all time, period. You might even feel like it is that level of quality today. I think the only generation I can remember being this enthralled with all of the new game releases was the GameCube. That was a highlight in Nintendo's history for me, and I believe that we are once again in that environment with the Switch, albeit better on a lot of fronts, considering that we can play our favorite AAA mainline Nintendo first-party published and developed games in handheld or docked mode. I love that flexibility, and it's clearly a genius concept, and it's also clearly the reason that Nintendo is so successful right now off the heels of what you could consider a commercial failure with their last console being the Wii U. However, one thing we do know that Nintendo sometimes struggles with is the transition to next generation hardware. And what I want to discuss in today's video is the broader picture of why it is actually time for Nintendo to start talking about what is next when it comes to new console hardware, not in light of the sales trajectory for the Switch, because while that is an interesting talking point and you can definitely see a decline signaling that market saturation is being approached at a rapid pace, I also don't think that Nintendo necessarily has to worry. I think that they could still coast on close to their 15 million unit projection that they have for this year without releasing too much more software on the current Switch today. I think with the variance that they have between the base model Switch, the OLED, and all of the special editions that come along with that, and the Switch Lite, that they can likely still hit the numbers that they want to hit for another year or two with the current hardware that we have today. But there's another perspective to look at on why Nintendo shouldn't wait too long, and that has to do with a lot of the third-party game lineup that we recently saw highlighted at showcases like the Sony PlayStation Games Showcase. We saw the Xbox Games Showcase. Nintendo has yet to reveal at the time of filming this video what they are doing for their Nintendo summertime presentation, whether it's a mainline direct, that would be fantastic, or a mini partner showcase where they focus on more third-party releases. We are starting to see a trend in gaming where the graphical requirements for these major games that we are seeing released today just have a higher standard naturally because they're being developed with modern hardware in mind. You have to think about the Switch and the chipset that we have in it today with the Tegra X1. That was a chip that NVIDIA developed for NVIDIA Shield TVs back in 2015. Then it was put inside of the Switch in 2017. We are using a chip that is approaching a 10-year-old market point, which is kind of crazy to think about whenever you think about how fast technology moves. Now, Nintendo's never going to turn a corner and become a powerhouse hungry console and one that will outperform consoles like the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, but I do think that they could get it to a point where the nice mixture of battery life and graphical capability is now achievable, where they could go with a newer handheld, put a serious chip in there that will make it future-proof for another 5 to 7 years to come, and they can start to secure some of these bigger games that you see at these presentations. We saw Ubisoft focus on Star Wars Outlaws. That's a fantastic looking game and a great experience. I recently have been enjoying Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I would love to have the option to have some of those games be playable on portable hardware or something that you can play in docked or on the go. I think that that's on the table for something like a next generation console, but when you stop and look around at these newer titles like Star Wars Outlaws, like Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater Remake that I'm very pumped to play through, and Alan Wake 2, various different focal points that we had at these summertime presentations, if you stop and look at these games, you realize that the only way we might be able to see them come to Switch today is via cloud port, and we know how those go right now. They are not an enjoyable way to play games, and I would only recommend somebody to pick up a cloud version of a game if it is truly your only way to experience it. We saw games like Kingdom Hearts, the entire collection, come to the Switch at a full retail price, but sold as only the cloud version. That was a big misstep and was likely done because developers are at a point where, while it is possible to get some modern games looking and running great on the Switch, you have to put a lot of development dollars and time into optimizing it. We've seen games like Marvel Midnight Suns completely canceled for the Nintendo Switch. It's not coming out at all. It probably is due partially to how the game is performing, but there's no doubt that it was something of a task for developers to get that game running smoothly on the current hardware we have today. You have a game like Hogwarts Legacy that has a Nintendo Switch version slated for release, but was supposed to be a big summertime game and now is something that is in the holster for November later this year, assuming that it doesn't get delayed again or ultimately canceled. I think that these are risks that we are facing now with the modern hardware that we have, and while I love my Switch and I will continue to game on my Switch even if there is new hardware, although I'm sure not as much, especially if it's backwards compatible, but I'll always have a place in my heart for the Nintendo Switch and what it did for Nintendo gamers out there. I do think that we are at a point in time now where it is just clearly time for Nintendo to move on and have something that can run a lot of these third-party showpiece titles that we should be able to get hyped about as well when we see them focused on at other gaming showcases. It would be nice to have a Nintendo Switch version in the holster. If we get something as powerful as a PlayStation 4 or Xbox One, while those generations are starting to ramp down on some of the ports in modern day gaming, we're definitely seeing a lot more of PlayStation 5 and Series X only developed titles, but we still see the possibility for those to get their own playable versions as well. And I think that it's something that if these developers see the kind of user base that the Nintendo audience has, and Nintendo is once again very successful with the marketing around this console and it sells 20+ million units in its first year, well, at that point you have a situation where there's no reason not to give us those excellent third-party experiences. And then in addition to that, we have all of the major first-party Nintendo software that right now you are starting to see kind of a lull in what to expect on Nintendo Switch games. Now that Tears of the Kingdom is out, we know Everybody 1-2 Switch is out the end of this month in June, and then we have Pikmin 4 to look forward to in July. And past that, we don't know what Nintendo's doing, and if they don't do anything from a first-party perspective, we really won't have a lot of new content that will be playable on the Nintendo Switch in 2023. And you have to have good third-party support in addition to an excellent first-party lineup to have a truly successful console generation and have one that is beloved by fans at the next level and one that will go down in history as a great console generation. I think the Switch has achieved that, but if Nintendo doesn't start to shift focus to what is next and reveal to us what is next, they run the risk of essentially holding on to the success that they have with the Switch today for too long and not capitalizing on momentum that they clearly still have at this point in the market today. We even saw a report recently out of Japan that says Nintendo shifted 104,000 units just in 1 week over there. The console's still selling. Tears of the Kingdom definitely gave it a boost, and the special edition OLED no doubt gave it a boost, as that is the biggest model that is selling the highest number of units right now. But Nintendo should not wait for sales to fully dwindle to actually start the run up and start the marketing for next generation hardware, and hopefully they put in a chip that is powerful enough to give us Nintendo gamers the ability to have some of those third-party showpiece experiences native on the console and not a cloud port. And I do think that us finding out about new hardware is actually a very likely scenario this year in 2023, and hopefully it's out by something like early 2024. But I really want to hear from you guys at this point in the video, your personal thoughts and opinions on everything we talked about today. How do you feel about the trajectory of the Switch? Do you think that Nintendo is indeed holding on to their success with this console for too long, and they may create another scenario where it is not a smooth transition to the next generation? Or do you think we are indeed around the corner from an official hardware reveal and that the timing will be right? And are you like me and you want to see more third-party support natively with a lot of these big games that are being revealed right now on Nintendo hardware? Or are you personally more happy with the first-party lineup that we get from Nintendo themselves, which, to be fair, is an impressive amount of games for one publisher and company to create? So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, which is on screen right now. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.